Hello everybody, this is Bison Crumbs and welcome back to my channel. Today it is October, so we are quite far behind, but this is about taking back control and getting back in that driver's seat to continue on the journey of becoming more financially stable and holding myself more account to a budget, which was one of my New Year's resolutions and the start of this channel. So, with all that said, we're going through August today, which was an awkward month in general because of a couple different factors, but this is when it really started to hit the fan in terms of a lot of different parts of my life, all converging at one time. And a big part of the reason why I ended up pausing all the projects I had for this channel set up and why it's almost taken as long to get restarted on this channel. So I'm hoping to have a very set schedule for the next couple weeks and catch up and still come out with the reorganization video that I have had promised and had started before having to stop. I don't know if that video is going to be cut into two parts since they are so far apart, and YNAB actually has like a new coat of paint entirely, so it really separates the two parts anyways, but it's all part of one video of reorganizing my budget anyways. The reason I was recording it was just to have an idea of what I was going to do with my budget and kind of show people the process of reprioritizing what you're going to do with your budget. But with all that said, we are using YNAB or You Need a Budget. It is a financial planning service that you can get a free month of if you use one of the links down below. So you can try it out for yourself and see if you like it. The easiest way to explain YNAB is that it is a digital envelope method of budgeting. So every category you have needs to be funded with the money that you have currently. If you do not have that money as of today, it is not money that you have, and therefore you cannot budget it. So we're going back and doing months, but ideally you should be going month to month. And at that point, you are looking at just whatever current paycheck you have and the money you have currently to fund like your rent and stuff. You can't look at the second week or even the third week as of some of the months. You can't look ahead at those paychecks and account for them as what you have to spend because that is not money you have currently. It is not money that can be spent currently. But all that is to say that it is now time to begin my budget. So August was the month that me and my wife ended our lease with our first apartment. We thought we could find a better apartment, or at least one that was closer in price to what we were paying out in Elkhorn. We could do that in town for about the same price for maybe more room, and we were looking for somewhere closer to our two jobs. Since Elkhorn is kind of the far out suburbs of Omaha, it took quite a bit of gas and time to get places where we wanted to be, whether it be work or events. So we decided to move closer in town to an apartment that was about the same price as what we were paying out in Elkhorn because it is the suburbs. It tends to be a little pricier out there. Those were the two goals we were looking for, and we ended up finding a place. But a lot of the apartment search was trying to find a place. And during that process, we ended up finding two places we liked on a top three list. But I asked for us to wait to check out a couple more places before we finally made a decision. And that was where the trouble began. If we had picked one of those two places, we would have been fine, but both of them actually ended up being snatched up within the couple of days it took to look at the next two places. So that one's on me. We were a little bit rushed into finding a new apartment. So with like a week difference, we ended up having to stay with my parents for a week while we set up the next apartment. We managed to get one of the apartments from one of the places we liked, but it wasn't the unit we liked. So a little give and take there. That's kind of why some of these line items are going to be very out of whack. It's between paying for our last apartment partially and paying for our new apartment partially. So while we were looking into apartments, I asked to extend our search for a week with my wife because I wanted to check out two more places before we made a final decision. We already had a top working three, and I just wanted to double check two more places that I really liked the looks of on the outside slash online, and she kind of wanted to jump on these. But I asked her to wait, and I ended up being wrong. I didn't realize how aggressive the housing market had become in Omaha. So all three of our top three places ended up getting snatched up, and we had to quickly find, and this was very last minute, we had to quickly find a new apartment that we liked. So we ended up going with one of our top three, but not in the unit we liked. And then because of that, this apartment unit was that we had to wait a week before we could move in. So we ended up having to move from Elkhorn to my parents' house for a week, which then got extended to 2 weeks when the apartment came in to check out the unit. They decided they needed to re-resin our bathtub, and especially because we have a cat, they asked if we wanted to wait a couple days before moving in, just to make sure that all that resin and fumes were out of the house, so our cat didn't have to inhale that basically. It was either that or putting him into some like kitty daycare. Well, we still had to smell the smell. So we decided that we would just wait an extra week at my parents' house. We actually managed to get the leasing office to take off that week so we could move in the next week on a Friday since it would be easier and it was already going to take 5 days to re-resin the tub and make sure everything's ready for us. It was a little bit of a struggle just because the apartment complex is owned by an investment group, and so rewriting a whole lease was something they didn't really want to do, but we argued for since the house was unlivable for, I believe it was 5 days. So it was going to be like the next Wednesday was it when it was going to be available next. And we asked for a lease for the next Friday since we weren't going to be in the apartment from a Friday to a Wednesday, so 5 days. We just made it a whole week and told them to take a week off of our lease. So that was a fun little struggle. They're pretty nice about it. I like the managers and the property managers here. They aren't too bad, but it was a little sad that it took a little bit of pushing to get what we thought was a decent request. It was going to be easier to move in on a Friday anyways, and making it a week would make it easier than a random day. With all that, that's kind of why my mortgage and stuff is lower, but also why I had to pay like a little bit of everything. And because I had to live at my parents for 2 weeks, none of these bigger expenses should be too much at the top, but towards the bottom, it's a lot of the security deposit and all that stuff that gets a little messy. And so to catch up, let's begin. We don't touch any of the credit cards, that's all good. A little bit of this reorganization is going to be left for the reorganization video, but we added water, trash, and sewer with our new apartment, and that'll be touched on more in September since we didn't have to pay for August. I think we will move them to the bottom still. Because I like it in a certain order for basic living. You just drag and drop those. In the month of August, I made $2,501.75. So we begin with basic living. Basic living is kind of my general category for all the apartment stuff. Our rent was 321.73 for the month of August. Pet rent we had to pay, and that was 282. And I'll also say a lot of these prices or these numbers are just my half. My wife pays the other half. Pest control, 57 cents was my half. Internet, I paid 12.78. And electricity, we paid 44.82. 44.82. Home gas, we paid 9.37. And for the rest, we didn't pay water, trash, or sewer that month. So continuing on, my phone bill was $35, which gets paid directly to my parents. Hulu and Disney Plus is the one subscription service we own, and that was $21.39. I guess technically two. Story Plotter I tried out, and I think this was my final month of it. That was $4.27. I ended up trying it out and not super liking it, but it happened to hit the next month before I canceled it. YouTube Premium went up to $14.97. I'm still paying for it and now considering trying to buy a yearly subscription. It'd be a lot cheaper to buy it yearly anyways, but I use YouTube a lot at work to listen to stuff, watch stuff, and I was using it enough where the ads got to the point where I just wanted them gone. So I still pay for YouTube Premium. Depending how this all goes, I will still have to reconsider a lot of my subscriptions here. I know I ended up skipping these two debts. My parents allowed me to skip paying for the car, but I know I accidentally waited until the next month to pay my wife back for my kitty cat. He has a lot of bills that we are catching up to being half and half on. We decided that I was able to pay her back each month for a year to be all kosher. So we're still in the process of that. We only have a couple more months now, but in August I paid for YNAB, and that was 98.99. In an attempt to resell, I bought a lot more packaging stuff for my little eBay. That was 12.10. During the move, I still had some eBay sales and I couldn't find the material, so I just went out and bought the material I felt I needed for the time to hold me over. I had thought I put it off all to the side, but something got mixed up there in the rush to leave and clean up to try to get the security deposit back from Elkhorn. For eBay, I just sell a lot of the old stuff I have that I no longer want. At one point, I was trying to sell Goodwill items, stuff that I went out and flipped, but that's a lot more of a process than YouTubers may have you think, depending on your area and circumstances. It ended up not being worth the time and effort. So now everything I have, I'm just selling, and we'll see where that goes. My second YouTube account, I spent $35. I'm still cutting back on spending more money before doing more with the second YouTube account. So this is soon going to be zero for a while I actually do stuff with it. But for now, it was 35. So after creative careers, we go to everyday spending. Laundry has been a newer one put in, so we'll move that here. Gas is the most important one, so we should actually move that to the top. Gas, I spent $125.39. With the two moves plus general work, it ended up being a little bit more than I usually spend, I believe. Well, I guess it's about average. It felt like more than I usually spent, but last month was also a bigger month just because I was going out and trying to find an apartment a lot of last month. So it's a little bit of a mix there. Sweet Stop, this is mostly just candy we pick up at grocery stores or mostly gas stations if we end up stopping and buying snacks at one of those. I spent $22.57, and then surprise merch was 36.07. Surprise merch is my category for concerts, or maybe not concerts. It's usually YouTubers or like special events where there's a merch drop and it's limited time and I spend on that. This month was wildfires in Maui. They ended up making a charity shirt for, and I've always bought them if they pop up to kind of support, and then I usually try to spend extra charity on the side to go directly to the cause and not just try to get merch out of it. I try to do both as much as possible. And there was no general merch. So, food, groceries, I still ended up spending $82.02. Food for me, it was a little bit more, a little bit less than usual. So, about average. About average for when I end up actually spending money on fast food on myself. I usually spend more money on me and my wife than just me, but this month was a little wild, which also led to it being higher for the two of us. Ended up being 152.49. Soda pops and energy drinks was $6 this month. So far we still have $1,430.01. So doing pretty good, about halfway through both the budget and my money. So event food, we ended up going to a local Greek festival. It's a little bit small, but it is nice to go every year. It usually doesn't cost much to get in. We ended up getting some free tickets, so we ended up going in for free. But the food is usually where they make their money back. So that's $34. And then concerts, I thought this was for my NF concert, but that ended up being in July actually. This was for 2 tickets to Tech Nine in Hollywood Undead. My wife likes Hollywood Undead. I like Tech Nine and King ISO, who's also going to be there. They're in Omaha. The concert's actually going to be in October, but I had to buy tickets because it ended up being sold out, which I was going to kind of guess. So 92.10, and then board games I spent $52. And this was on a special YouTuber's own board game. I wanted to support him, so I ended up buying it through Kickstarter. We don't touch self-improvement yet. We don't touch investing yet. The untouchables, we don't touch. Rainy day, we need to start looking towards the wedding. This is for the weddings two, technically. Me and my wife are already married, but our first one wasn't the most ideal, but we're seeing about that. We have other goals in mind as well, and we have to kind of talk through those. We talk a little bit, and then every so often we look at what our priorities with money are, and usually the wedding is kind of lower on the list there. And I guess you could see that with it being in the honeymoon category instead of the wedding. But vacation, so far, it's all just going to stick there. Video games, I spent $20.49 on DLC. That was actually DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. That is coming out in September. And then the second one, since it's a bundle, was coming out nearer Christmas. Personally, I'm a little sad that the first DLC didn't come out closer to summer and then the second one in winter. since the game itself was actually released in November of 2022. I felt that was more of a consistent schedule instead of waiting a whole year for two DLCs back to back. But Pokemon Company decided to do it this way, so that's how it is. Gifting. I have a lot of birthdays, holidays, but nothing spent this time. Wish Farm. I was collecting all the Book of Boba / Mandalorian teas. So when one came up on the market on eBay, I snatched it up real quick. It was a little bit pricier than I was hoping, but it's a rare item, so I was kind of expecting that. And then my Troublemaker. For Wish Saplings. So I didn't save for this, and I really should have. It's an extra large item. I I spent it on a Halo Infinite Xbox Series X. So this wasn't the Cyberpunk thing that I had at one point planned for. This was instead a large purchase of $742.69. I think I was a little bit on eBay too much looking at these, but I put a few bets out there and I actually ended up winning one for, I believe it was closer to 620 is what I won the bet for. Um, I'll look at that real quick. Yeah, I ended up winning a bet for about $650 for a Halo Infinite Xbox Series X. I'll display it here with the controller. These tend to go on eBay for about 800, so I was getting $150 off. Then taxes plus shipping brought it closer to $750. I forgot to account for that much because I felt like 650 plus, I believe it was $40 shipping. So even with that, it was one of the cheapest prices these have gone for. So I got a really good deal on it. It was still not the best purchase idea, but it is a really nice console and I've been having a lot of fun with it. So sadly, that's what happened there. Which leaves me at $412.11. Pet food. Spent $18 buying cat food. Postage and mailing. I spent $47.34 buying a new scale, a better one than the one I had gotten from stamps.com. Stamps.com, I signed up through an affiliate link, and it just wasn't a service I really liked. For one, you had to put money into it like a balance, and instead of like purchasing each one individually. And in the end, eBay ends up doing a lot of these deliveries for you for basically the same price anyways. But aside from that, I canceled Stamps, but Stamps had at the beginning given me a scale, but it was a USB only scale. And I like a lot of the stuff that can go to places without needing a USB. Separate batteries, all that is way better. And this one actually goes up higher in weight, and I bought it from the United States Postal Service directly, USPS. So I was also supporting the USPS, which I'm happy about. Continuing with in the house, we spent $28.48 on some medicines, and I bought $18 worth of containers to help us move. Appliances. With our new apartment, it did not come with a microwave, which we went in knowing. There's a few other appliances that are not in this apartment that we weren't aware of when we quickly snatched up. We're missing I wouldn't say missing, but we don't have a dishwasher. We didn't have a microwave. Our stove is a little wonky, but I went out and bought a microwave. They were on sale, so I got a pretty decent one for 85.60, and that was from Target. The one good thing about moving in August is a lot of the dorm room appliances are on sale for the college students. So that took, I think I bought a $100 one for 30 bucks off. Pretty decent there. None of this I did. Wife payback. I gave her 321. That's usually for eBay stuff that she sells. I still have the account. I just pay her back every so often when the number gets a little bit higher. Sometimes it's like 20, 30. Sometimes I wait until it hits at least closer to $5. I don't give her the change each week, but when it's a little bit higher, at least a couple dollars, I'll give it to her. I just keep it separately assigned to remind myself to give it to her. Interest and fees was $2.95. That was for spending money on my debit card for my rent. And then moving out costs. This is where it really hit me. So the administrative fee was $50. I believe we ended up getting two administrative fees, one for one apartment I tried to put in an application for, and the one we actually ended up getting it for. A lot of these apartments require you to give them a fee for even applying, so that's really cool. Security deposit was $250, where my wife gave me the other $250 to give a grand total of $500. The pet deposit was $300, so my half was $150. General moving costs were $175.44. That was a mix of buying pizzas for people that helped us and renting the U-Haul, all this little stuff. And then the search cost was $35. I believe that was just a random fee that we had put on. This $35 was actually for the application fee for our second apartment, the one we actually ended up getting. I guess in July I actually put money towards this for the other apartment that we did not get for application fee. The administrative fee is different than the application fee, where to set up your account, you need to give them money. So that was $50 for the administration fee. And this is where I learned that moving out costs quite a bit more than I expected. It's a lot of upfront costs that go into that. Overall, I think September is where I'll be talking more about my apartment that we do have and some more of the costs to think about. But this video is more about having hope and getting back on the horse. I finished July and we went over in August because of what I spent on myself. So we need to fix that first. So because we bought the Xbox, we have to take about $500 out of somewhere. Don't want to touch those for my wife. That I'm not touching yet. I think most of it's going to come out of my Roth for now. Oh, it's the wrong amount. Plus 142. So that leaves us $142.86 within the extra money I've set aside. I've definitely felt that I was going over budget. I didn't realize I was going over budget by this amount, which begins to play into the idea of staying on track of a budget is a lot of keeping up with it and not giving up. Always be willing to get back into that driver's seat. You can always take breaks, but any extended length you're gone from your budget, even if it's kind of a compounding idea of the longer you're gone, the worse it's going to be. It's already been damaged, and getting back in the driver's seat is about assessing the damage and going from there. I know I've overspent. I know I spent a lot in a lot of places, and some of the purchases were not the greatest idea, but that's all in the past, and we have to look towards the future. During my reorganization videos, I've been canceling a lot of subscriptions and trying to cut costs, so I just have to continue that and really start to watch this budget more. Never lose hope and always focus on the future, but don't let it drag you down. I'm gonna have to be pulling out of a couple other places I don't want to pull from, but a lot of YNAB is realizing that you've already spent this money, you've gone over, and this is kind of where you're detrimenting yourself. One day it's my goal to actually fund a Roth IRA again. I did half the amount for 2020, I think, and I did a bit more in 2021, but in the end, setting aside $500 or 525 now. So if we put it like that, it's still about $500 a month to put away. I want to hit that goal one day to put money aside and apply it to my Roth IRA again. But with the current spending rate and cost of my living right now, I'm not going to ever hit it. If I do want to prioritize this, I do have to cut back and I have to realize how this money is affecting one another for categories. So because I spent money on the Xbox, that's $500 I could have spent for the Roth IRA. And that would have been $500 closer to actually achieving that goal. But I didn't, so that is the failing and the consequence, which is where I am looking to end this video actually. I hope everyone has a good day and keeps up with their own budgets. This is my journey to catch up back on mine. So, with all that said, this has been a bison's journey of making crumbs on the prairie. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Do I say bye?